I have to say that after being here for this is my 5th year, I have to say this is one of the worst budgets that I've seen really put together with such haste. And this education component is particularly troublesome because we don't have really the input of the educators in this process. And I do believe that instead of putting together something like this, we should have had hearings. We really should have took a more slow approach into learning what those who are in the education field think we should be implementing in terms of not only an evaluation system, but how to improve our entire education system. We spend $23 billion in this state on education, and that's the #1 state in the country in terms of spending, but we're not anywhere near that in terms of results. And so there's a lot more that needs to be done, and I don't feel that not only is this not doing it, but then we're going to allow the State Department of Education and the regents, the same people responsible for the disastrous rollout of Common Core, to be in charge of coming up with an evaluation system, which will most likely be exactly what the governor has proposed. It will include high-stakes testings. It will include outside evaluators, maybe perhaps somebody, we don't even know who that will be, and maybe somebody has no idea about the school district or the environment. And I think that's very troublesome, and so I'm going to be voting against this, not just for that reason, but I have many more reasons, which I would like to just talk about briefly. I echo my colleagues' concerns earlier about the education tax credit not being included in this budget. When our private and parochial schools succeed, it's a win-win situation. When those schools do not succeed, and we've seen a number of schools in my district close that are parochial schools over the last few years, and what happens is those children now are absorbed by the public school system, which is already overcrowded. And I believe that we have to make an effort to help all schools be successful. And I think the tax credit was something that was not only made sense, but we had overwhelming support for in this body. The DREAM Act, for instance, has been voted on 4 times in the past year. It was voted on in both houses. It did not have the support from the legislature to pass. Yet the education tax credit was voted on in the Senate a couple of times overwhelmingly, but we have not yet brought it to this floor for a vote. And it has enough sponsors to pass this bill, and it will pass if it is brought to the floor for a vote. And I think it's a very sad day for democracy when a piece of legislation that has that many sponsors does not come to the floor for a proper debate, discussion, and vote. So I hope that we will see that bill come up to the floor before session ends. In terms of higher education, I'm very disappointed that we still have not increased the household threshold, the income cap for the tuition assistance program. I have said it on this floor numerous times that the last time we increased the income eligibility for the tuition assistance program in the state was back in the year 2000, 15 years ago, and that was from $50,000 to $80,000. So if you are a family of 5, if you have 3 children, let's say, or 4 children that you need to put through college on a salary of $81,000, along with all the other middle-class expenses that you have with a mortgage and so many other things that this government has created, the increased cost of living, you can't do so. And so I would really urge this House, this legislature, our governor, to please look at the tuition assistance program's income eligibility cap. There are so many struggling middle-class families that cannot pay for school. They are struggling, taking on tremendous amount of debt, taking second, third jobs, and it's something that we need to address as a legislature, along with restoring the tuition assistance program for graduate students. That also was eliminated by the 2010 legislature in the budget process. I was not here at the time, but I have been advocating for its restoration since. I think it's very important when we're looking at this program that our graduate students, our future teachers, lawyers, doctors, will have the ability to pay for their education. Certainly that's not going to help pay for it entirely because there's many more problems, but at least the tuition assistance will provide a little bit of help to those who truly need it. Lastly, with the ethics reform, I agree that it is ridiculous that we're tying the education component of this budget with ethics reform. And really, it's not even a good ethics reform package either. So, I mean, I think there's a number of things that the Republican Assembly has proposed in terms of ethics reform, and really there's only, I think, one or two of them in here. But we have asked that we require itemized appropriations for any discretionary request by the governor or legislator. We've asked that we prohibit any appropriation when a conflict of interest exists, including appropriations to organizations that employ or compensate a legislator or a family member, which, by the way, we have multiple our former colleagues sitting in jail for just that. And we should also prohibit elected officials from establishing or running a nonprofit organization. But the Assembly Republican Conference has also proposed a number of other good things, like banning elected officials convicted of a felony relating to their office from lobbying, from bidding on state contracts, or from holding another public office, as well as forfeiture of campaign funds given to elected officials convicted of felony offense, penalties for failing to file financial disclosure statements, and implementing term limits for legislative leaders. None of these things are in this ethics package. It is instead, we all got to swipe in when we come to work. That's really innovative, and it's actually almost like as if we're in high school. I mean, it's always like the one or two people in the class that ruin it for everybody. So instead of actually passing something comprehensive, we're just passing some real nonsense, which I don't think goes far enough. I am happy, though, that we're finally going to strip pensions from those elected officials who are convicted of corruption. No one should be sitting in jail after betraying the public's trust, collecting taxpayer dollars in the form of pensions. So that is something, at least, that we can be proud of when we go back to our district. But as far as this other stuff, I think it's all real nonsense, and we should have taken more time in discussing it collectively instead of just jamming this down our throats a few hours after we first got to read it. For those reasons, I'll be voting against this, Mr. Speaker. Thank you very much.